G'day there, and welcome back to another episode of Purpose Partners for Life. I'm your co-host, Laban,
And I'm Anna Ditchburn.
and we've been together nearly 5 years. And on this channel, we love to share ideas, create awareness, create possibilities that will help you level up your relationship to a point where you can become your own purpose partner with your significant other.
So if you feel like you are stuck in your relationships, there are no deep and meaningful communications happening. There is no the level of intimacy that you would love to experience with your partner. And you are having some arguments about the financial component. This video is for you. We're gonna share in this video how we overcame those challenges and what we did to finally to step into the purpose partners zone.
So one of the biggest challenges I think we had in our relationship early on was we got together in 2018. I had an attempt at being an entrepreneur in 2019, which was a total unmitigated financial disaster. And I use that term for effect only because it ended up being a massive blessing in disguise. But that whole 2019 period, I was working in my former life of being an IT recruitment consultant. You still had your job. We'd moved in together at this point. We'd started to experience a number of these challenges around miscarriages and making babies and stuff. And when 2020 hit, because I hadn't earned anything of any significance in 2019, I didn't qualify for any of the government payouts. And we were living in Melbourne, Australia at that time, and we were locked in our homes for what ended up being a total of about 290 something days.
And I became a major provider in our family just for a few months.
Yeah, and thank God for that. But what happened as a result of Anna being the primary breadwinner, and you weren't even earning a big salary at that point. It still wasn't enough to cover our monthly overheads, car payments and food bills and stuff. And I was doing everything I could, but we were locked in our homes, and I didn't have any experience as an entrepreneur at this point in the area that I'm in now. And I think a lot of people were shell shocked by what went on. And we know through a number of the statistics that came out post COVID and post lockdowns that relationships, it broke many of them. And one of the situations that we had was frustration, at least, and you can answer this in your own words, I think, when I wasn't able to provide for our family, which was just the two of us, and the resentment that I felt from being in what I thought was this very helpless situation.
I think the dynamic of our relationships definitely shifted because you've been a major provider, major breadwinner for a long, like for extended period of time. And for me, it was probably the hardest thing and more disappointing thing was to see you not being able to come up with some ideas how to make money, even though you were doing your best. And I was born in Russia, where the family value is all about a man to be a major provider, and a woman is looking after the house and looking after kids in most cases. But for me, it was more natural when I wanted my man to go and kill the mammoth and
Woolly mammoth.
the woolly mammoth and bring it home. When I became a major provider, I felt like I took on a very heavy burden as a woman. And I am a big believer that the challenges make men stronger, but destroy women. And that's what I was feeling like. Those challenges would slowly start destroying me.
Anna and I had agreed when we first got together. We were very aligned in our values and our beliefs, and that's why I think we got on so beautifully as we do. And so it was very clear from the get-go that that was my responsibility in the relationship. That one of the biggest frustrations was I didn't know how to solve that problem, and instead of dealing with that in a more strategic way, I just let it overwhelm me, and then I would totally button off and become pretty useless when it came to, I gave up relatively easy. And one of the examples was that I was selling hand sanitizer and face masks. We had bushfires in Australia before COVID, and I was able to sell these face masks to people that wanted them for when the pandemic broke out. And then YouTube Marketplace and eBay prevented the sale of these
You're
hand
making
sanitizer.
a good money, by the way.
Yeah, well, it was enough. It was enough to provide for us at the time in an environment where there wasn't many other options for me at that point. And so then I had that taken away from me, and it was a real kick in the guts. So my self-confidence took a real blow. But then the dynamic, the resentment sort of built up, didn't it? And then we would have a few arguments with me not feeling valued, and Anna not having me hold up my end of the bargain despite the circumstance. And we both had a lot of work to do as well. We both had valid points to our arguments, but it caused a real disruption in the relationship at the time, right?
And probably my biggest frustration was that I didn't know how to help you at the beginning. I didn't know what to do. Just seeing you sitting on the couch and eating ice cream sometimes, and then
Guilty.
going into
Comfort
this
eating.
sugar
Comfort
coma.
eating. Yeah.
And procrastinating and just being totally like out of this world. Thanks God you didn't drink or you didn't smoke or you went into this harder path. I'm very grateful. But for me, it was like, how can I inspire you? How can I encourage you? How can I help you to get back to the path you were before?
So we were very blessed. We had this wonderful opportunity. I created my own podcast series, which is called Become Your Own Superhero. And we can put a link to that channel as well, where I do all interview styles, and I bring on interesting people from all around the world in lots of different subjects. And pretty early on, we were able to bring on Dr. John Gray, who wrote that very, very famous relationship book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and the associated books that have come from that. And so what we did is and I invited Anna on as my very first co-host, which I should have done earlier because she's so well received. These people and make sense while we're doing this channel together. But we asked one of the top relationship experts on the planet questions that we wanted to know the answer to. Now, do you remember some of the responses that he gave us? And given the topic of today's conversation, no more pertinent time in the world, I think, I'd like to start off with a tricky one for you, if you're up to the challenge.
That's great.
So during the lockdown, John, I was made redundant and I lost about 85% of my earning capacity during that time. And whilst we were able to manage, towards the end there, I became dependent on Anna to fund some of the major overheads in the household. And it did disrupt the dynamic of our relationship at times. And I was curious to know how you might explain what went on there.
Well, I have a really nice, you can explain anything from many different points of view, right? So in my most recent book, I've got a lot of my books over there, but one's called Beyond Mars and Venus. And I'm helping people understand how men and women are different in terms of their biology. And the biology is set when you're born. As a male, you require 10 times, at a minimum, 10 times more testosterone than a woman to experience well-being. And when your testosterone is low and your estrogen is high, that's the female hormone, your cortisol levels get produced, and that's called stress. And that interferes with feeling affection and warmth, okay? So when your hormones are out of balance, you can't feel affection and warmth. For a woman, when she feels taken care of, supported, she can get what she needs, that produces estrogen. She needs to make 10 times more estrogen than a man in order to feel warm and friendly and to be optimistic and to see the good qualities. And if her estrogen goes down, usually at that time, her testosterone goes up. Estrogen is receptivity. And if you feel like I can't get what I need, then a woman tends to go automatically over to her male hormone. Well, I'll do it myself. I've got to do it myself. And that's something that you've just described, is when a woman is used to getting a certain kind of support from you, that produces testosterone. But more importantly, your work, your earning capacity as a man is your major source of testosterone.
I remember it was very powerful. He explained to us why the dynamic in a relationship is changes when it happens. But what I realized from this conversation for myself is that I need to start changing myself and my attitude towards this situation. Because the more I was building resentment, the more I was getting angry, the more I was getting frustrated, the situation was going worse and worse and worse, because where your attention goes, your energy flows. When I started shifting my intentions, my emotions, and my thoughts about this situation, when I started to imagining Laban being a very successful man, a very successful podcaster, and a very successful businessman, who is bringing a lot of money, energy, and support in our house. It took a little bit of time, but then what's happened next? You start figuring out things that you want to do. You started to finding your purpose, your why, and you started coaching.
One of the greatest blessings from the lockdown was the clarity that I got from what I wanted to do and how I wanted to show up and how I wanted to impact the world. So in terms of those 2 and a bit years, were they incredibly challenging? Yes, they were. Were they some of the hardest years or months of my life and Nana's life and lots of other people's lives? Without a doubt. But through great adversity comes great growth. And if you suffered during that time as well, and maybe it cost you a relationship, maybe this was some kind of profound blessing from the universe to help you exit something that wasn't serving either of you very well, and was the final kick in the pants that we need sometimes to take bold, massive, and courageous action. And I think that's absolutely what happened to us. As a result, John Gray, at the end of that conversation, offered to write an endorsement in my book, which he so generously did, which was a big deal for me. And we had this nearly 2-hour-long interview where we came away with these skill sets and tools and resources to help us level up our relationship. So what's the point of sharing all this with you? Well, there's no linear path when it comes to resolving a number of these challenges, right? It takes the awareness firstly, and then you need a strategy that you can implement. And where can you get that from? Well, you take that from people that have already achieved what it is that you want to achieve. You wouldn't take dietary advice from a morbidly obese person, or health advice from a really unwell doctor. So why would you take relationship advice from someone that's maybe a dating coach that's single? And I'm sure there's some great dating coaches out there that are single, but surrounding yourself with people that have already achieved what you want to achieve is a really great shortcut to being able to fast track the healing journey and the growth journey, in my humble opinion.
And also learn how to communicate with your partner, because open and honest communication can prevent so many arguments. For me, I didn't know how to communicate with Laban at the very beginning. He was seeing that I was getting frustrated and disappointed, and every time he would ask me, "What's wrong? Like, what is happening, baby?" I was like, "Nothing, all good, all good." And so what was happening is I was building this resentment within me, bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one day it would explode in a bigger argument. And then I would tell him what was the true reason.
A lot of this, from what Anna's sharing, from both of our respective childhoods, was a key reason why we responded in the way that we did. So for me personally, I grew up as a child of divorce. I never had a strong masculine role model really in my life until in my mid to late 20s, when I got involved with sporting clubs and elite level cricket, that type of thing. So I had to de-learn and then relearn functional masculine behavior as part of my journey. And I had done quite a lot of that long before Anna and I met, but it wasn't until I had proof of concept in a relationship that I was able to implement. This is my longest relationship by 5 times. It's a 500% increase on my longest relationship. A testament, I think, to doing the work. With
And-
regards to your childhood,
Yeah, and for me, I was just growing up with abusive father. I was so afraid to speak up, to express my own thoughts and my own feelings, because I was so worrying how the other person would react, and I was so afraid to offend someone, and not knowing how to explain what is really happening. It was a very big challenge for me.
so if that's a part of how you grew up, you need to know something really important. As a child, that is not your fault. However, it is your responsibility. So, and you'll notice that anytime we share any of this stuff, it's never from a victim standpoint. It's always from a place of strength and certainty, because when you whinge to people about what's going on, 90% of people don't care, and the 10% remaining are actually glad it's happening to you.
So what are the 3 steps people can take?
So step number 1, man, would you agree communication is key?
Key. Yep.
All right. Don't let that little wee tiny monster grow into a giant monster by feeding it after dark and getting it wet like gremlins.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something on your mind, get it out into the open before it has a chance to manifest into something far more destructive.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2,
Be honest. Let your partner know how does something that they are doing makes you feel.
and I'll give you an example. What I said to Anna was, babe, and this, bear in mind, this is always to be done in a non-argument environment. This is always when things are going good. Sometimes post-coital, it was a good time to have these kind of conversations, just after you've made sweet and passionate love to each other, when the endorphins are high. And I would say things to Anna like, darling, when you don't verbalize to me that you're upset about something, and then it goes on and it blows up later on, like, that really challenges and frustrates me. And I know you'll get a far better outcome if you can just let me know what's on your heart, and we can try and nip it in the bud right there and then.
That's a good one.
Number 3, be really empathetic to each other to know that neither of you have it figured out. You're doing the best you can with the tools you've got available. Yes, there's an opportunity to grow and learn, but have empathy, not sympathy, but empathy for the other person's situation. Until I really got to know Anna at a really deep level, and we connected very quickly and shared very intimate details very quickly early on, that it wasn't until maybe a year into the relationship, when you really revealed to me what you'd gone through as a child, that I was able to truly empathize with where you were coming from. And it explained a lot of the reactionary behavior from some of the conversations and maybe a couple of the arguments that we'd had. And I think arguments, healthy disagreement is really integral in the boundary setting process. Arguing is a wasted energy source, but inevitably it happens. So you just need to deal with it.
Can I add number 4?
Yeah, bonus.
Okay.
A bonus response.
A bonus response. When the situation comes to, and she said, and he said, and she said, and he said, and all this stuff, just take a step back. What is the most important thing for you in these relationships? Your relationships, or to be right? So choose. You need to choose in this relationship, because she said, he said is not going to take you anywhere. But stepping back and just to observe the situation and make a decision whether you are going to love this person, to give him love and respect, or whether you want to be right and not getting the relationships or deep and meaningful and loving connections that you desire.
The journey of growth that Anna and I have experienced, and I think a lot of other couples will experience and are experiencing, there's no cookie cutter for this, because you're all very unique in your own magnificent way. And then you bring together and you combine those unique qualities together, and then that manifests other qualities that sort of evolve from that. Many good, some not so good. And that only they become apparent once you've spent the time together. And thank God that you took such a mature approach to a lot of this stuff, because I would often regress back into my weak beta cuckold former life, which related to not having any idea how to respond as a male. And don't get me wrong, folks, I got lots of beautiful attributes from my father. He's still alive at time of recording. He's in his 70s now. We don't have a super close relationship, not as close as I would like, but I got lots of amazing attributes from him, but I also took on some of the negative stuff as well. And I'm doing what I can to clear away a lot of those in the same way that you are with your upbringing and your childhood.
But if you are still single and you really want to develop this deep and meaningful and loving relationships and communications, the thing that really helped us at the very beginning is when Laban told me, probably the first or second date, he told me, Anna, you can ask me anything you want as long as you're happy to hear the answer.
Very good question, by the way.
Oh,
Or a very good statement.
very good
A very good
statement,
statement, by the
very
way,
good
for all the men
statement.
out there.
And oh yeah, I took him up on this offer. He had to be very, very open and honest with me. But you know, at the very beginning, probably some of the things that I want to know were shocking for me to hear. But what it did, it created a very safe and very open and honest environment where I finally felt safe to open up about my past, about my childhood, without any judgment, because I knew that he went through so many things. He's not going to judge me. True?
True. And it was one of the most challenging offers that I've ever thrown out into the world, because, and I invited this in, and in hindsight, it was one of the best things I ever did for our relationship, because we don't have any secrets. We don't have anything that you need to remember. And I forget the quote, might have been Mark Twain or someone that said, tell the truth so you never have to remember anything. And after coming from plenty of shorter term relationships where I would use a lot of white lies, and occasionally they would turn into big, big, dirty lies, particularly if I was cheating on them or whatever. And that was just a direct reflection of who I was at that point in my life. And I'm very proud to say that I've grown a lot. And I think a lot of that comes with age, but also self-awareness and doing the work. And like Anna said, if you're single, now's the time to start the preparation to get ready, so that when you do meet that person, that you've done enough work that the leap from here to here is not too big. You want to just not have to make such a big leap in your own self-development when you meet that person, when you manifest that person. So we promised you three ways how you can go from problem partner to purpose partner. And that's number one we've just covered. What's number two?
Number two is intimacy.
Ooh.
You don't expect that. Why intimacy is so important?
Well, for obvious reasons, being intimate in everything that encompasses, the lovemaking to the physical touch, the emotional connection, the relief that it provides when you are in sync with each other and how much more productive you can be really ties into the first challenge, the communication component. Because if you're not addressing that first component, then intimacy, and then later on we'll talk about the finances will really suffer as well. So intimacy. In the time that Anna was having miscarriages, there was an obvious gap in the time that we were able to be physically intimate in terms of making sweet, sweet love. And, you know, for obvious reasons, and especially after Anna had had surgery, but we were able to make alternative arrangements and a number of things, but there was an energy that built up that ended up being misdirected, you know, because we were healthy and strong and eating really well. And that energy, when it wasn't directed into intimacy where it had been ordinarily, was used for other nefarious things at from time to time, right? And what are some of the things that would come up?
Can I add something? And I would notice in the time we wouldn't have intimacy, like we wouldn't spend so much time together. The connection would become thinner and thinner. And that's what I think most people are experiencing within the year when their intimacy is getting less and less and less and less. There is a less and less deep connection happening between people. Because what do we have when we have a lot of intimacy? We can feel each other. We exchange the energy between each other. And that's why intimacy is so important, because for men is getting the energy from women only. And woman can get her energy from everywhere else, from the nature, from meeting her friends, from doing shopping, from reading an amazing book. That's what brings her a lot of energy. We can literally accumulate the energy from the sun. Men don't have this ability. They getting this energy from us directly. That's why it's so important for men to have a partner, to have a woman. And how do we pass this energy to our men? Through making love, through touches, through kisses. That's why, ladies, if you want your husband start growing, start being more energized, start bringing more income in the family, you need first to be so energetically on a higher level that you can support with your energy your man. Can you feel my energy? Can you feel when I'm a little bit down or tired? You're like, what's happening? You can feel it on an energetic level. Like, what's happening? Come
Well,
on.
thankfully, you're not like that very often at all. And when it does happen, I'm usually in a good place. So I'm able to help drag Anna back up from her little funk.
By how? How?
By
doing
intimacy.
what?
Yeah, by doing acts of love and following through on my mission as a man.
Yeah, which
By
in
providing, by killing that woolly mammoth.
Which in terms, seeing you doing this, it brings my energy back, because I can see that I'm not just wasting my energy. I'm investing my energy in my man. And then it's like a cycle. I'm investing my energy in you, you investing your energy in the business, and the business then brings me energy back. This is the rule for ladies. Just remember. And sometimes when this cycle breaks, when there is no more intimacy and passing this energy, that's where the man goes down and the business goes down.
That's exactly what happened. So,
you know what I've learned? One thing. Can I share?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
You know why? And tell me if it's not true, okay? You know why some men having a mistress? You know why?
Why?
Because they can feel that their woman is energetically very limited, is energetically cannot provide or fulfill some of the main needs for men. being loved, being respected, being heard, intimacy, because
I mean, they're the main ones that I can think of.
some of the main things. He needs to get this energy from another woman. If his wife cannot fulfill those needs, that's why he goes somewhere and finds it from mistress.
And I would just add to that as well. I know that in my own mum and dad's relationship, my father was, as I mentioned earlier, very weak masculine energy, and he attracted a very domineering feminine energy. And I know from firsthand accounts that at times my mum withheld that physical intimacy from my father, and rightly or wrongly, right? And then he ended up being driven into the arms of his blonde-haired secretary, who he married and had my two younger half-sisters with. And we're not here to cast judgment on the reasons behind why that happened, because there's lots of good men get driven into the arms of another woman because there's some mismatch in the relationship, and it may not always be his fault, and vice versa. When women go and cheat, it's a totally different energy. Do you really think it's lack of intimacy though? Because I know women that have stayed with their partners when they've become paralyzed, or even tetraplegics, when they're not even able to move anything below their neck. So there's very limited things you can do from a sexual intimacy point of view, if you're in traction. So is it really intimacy, or is the lack of love? So, well, let me ask you this. When you've been unfaithful in a previous relationship, and I know you shared with me that happened at least on one occasion, what was the reason why? Do you remember why you did it?
I think it was the same. I couldn't fulfill my needs.
They couldn't fulfill your needs.
They couldn't fulfill my needs.
Yeah.
What are the 3 simple steps we can share what we did to keep our intimacy on a higher level?
Well, the first one that I could think of was our diet. Whenever we went off the rails and ate a bunch of crap, the libido would drop off. And if you've got no libido, that's a worrying sign that your health is in the crapper. And, especially if you're still relatively young, and even healthy people in their 80s, 90s, and even older still have a sex drive. It may not be as high as it is when you're 16 or 18, but that's the first thing that I would look at. That's been a massive thing. When we incorporated discipline into what we're eating, our sex drives went through the roof.
Yep. The second, I love incorporating some touches and kisses and doing some things.
I love, and I manifested this as well, my dream partner, someone that loved touching, non-sexual.
Holding hands.
Yeah. You could call it non-sexual touching, but it still leads towards the intimacy side of things, right? Anna and I, whenever we go anywhere, we almost exclusively hold hands, or I grab onto Anna's hand. Because I love doing it. I love doing it. I know Anna loves having her hand held as well. Whenever we go out for dinner, I always try and get a seat next to Anna, so we're not sitting opposite each other, so we can be touching each other's legs, and we often share meals and that kind of thing as well. And the third thing is always going to come back to communication, and you hear this over and over again, but it is so important. And the Stoic Seneca said it's always worse in our imaginations than it is in reality. And that relates to being fearful of bringing up something with your partner that's causing you problems, or causing you to feel a way that's not very good. And quite often you had that conversation, and your partner, if they are a purpose partner, will get it immediately and want to help rectify that situation.
Can I add the 4th one?
A bonus and another bonus one, yeah.
The confidence. When woman doesn't have enough confidence to tell a man to show up in the way that she wants to show up, especially when he look in the mirror and she doesn't like how she looks like, she doesn't like how she walks like, she doesn't like to be seen without the clothes, because there is some sort of shame associated with that. So the main thing for women to be very intimate in the relationships is to be confident.
And confidence can really be built up from the husband as well, the partner. And by acknowledging the obvious brilliant things about your partner. And if you're with someone that you're not sexually attracted to, and that's the way they were when you met them, then you need to seriously reassess,
Reconsider.
right, whether that's the right person for you. I would argue that they ain't. It might be a case where the person that you married has now morphed into a whole new shape. And that's a whole nother conversation that we can explore down the line. But fundamentally, and again, because I was able to manifest this, I adore the way Anna looks. She also has the self-awareness to keep herself in a physical, emotional, spiritual condition where that attraction's high. I think men, whether this is fair or not, can get away with putting on a few pounds and not having the same negative impact that might have on the women. But it's just, and I don't want to upset the wrong people here, but this is just basic hardwired human evolution. Men are wired to mate. I'm beginning to think that men are wired for monogamy. I know that a lot of people might disagree with that, and to each their own, but there's something about being able to grow, to the benefits of growing together. I don't know how I could replicate this with multiple partners, with multiple wives. I just, that would be a lot of work.
And ladies, believe me, men are too lazy to do this.
For a very
Unless
long,
they're missing something.
or unless they are
For a long time, yeah.
part of a religious fraternity that has multiple wives. And the third thing, and the final thing we want to talk about today, is
finances and business, building your own empire.
So how does this relate to being a problem partner to a purpose partner?
To be a purpose partners, it means sharing the similar goals, sharing the similar purposes, sharing the similar vision with each other. It's about building your own empire together, supporting each other, uplifting each other. What else do we do?
Yeah. So
let's give an example.
So
growing with each other.
Yeah. So the example that Anna and I can share is we are both in a very similar space, and we've chosen to combine our expertise to build this part of our business, what we do. We've received really great advice and some wonderful feedback that we are more powerful together. We're way more impactful. So it makes perfect sense for us.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a situation where the husband works and the mum stays home, looks after the kids, this still equally applies to you. You don't need to be entrepreneurs together for this to be relevant. It's how can you manage that workload that you're all doing to create this purpose partner connection. And one of the best ways that I believe personally that you can do that is to become very clear on your goals and your values.
And your vision.
And your vision.
For your family.
Because if you don't have 1, 2, or 3 of those, or all of them, you're going to be flying by the seat of your pants, and it can go all squirrely kind of directions as well.
Remember the time back in Melbourne at the very beginning when you started this entrepreneurial journey and you went into podcasting, coaching, and I was still working at my 9-to-5 job. And I remember we were having some discussions, some challenges around, I couldn't understand what are you doing, where it's gonna take you, so what is it all about? And I was thinking it's just a joke, podcasting, haha. And then on another side, you couldn't understand why I still stuck in my 9 to 5 job. There are so many wonderful opportunities to grow together, to skyrocket our business together. And so what I did, I remember, I just put myself in your shoes. I wanted to see what you see in this business. I wanted to see what kind of opportunities you saw in this coaching world. It really opened up my eyes, and especially co-hosting John Gray on your podcast really made me rethink what am I doing. And I remember I've realized that if we want to build an empire together, Ditchburn's empire, I have to step out of my job, 9 to 5 job, and support you fully. When you were writing the book,
Yeah,
especially,
yeah. And I think one of the proudest moments of my life with Anna, once she'd had a taste of being a podcast
Mhm.
host, she then took it upon herself to create a podcast in the job that she worked at. She worked for a big bank in Australia called ANZ Bank, and they
Mhm.
have, I don't know how many tens of thousands of employees they had, like
Yeah, like
50,000,
60
60,000 people.
60,000 people.
So it was quite a big environment. But then Anna started interviewing key people within ANZ, and she started to see the value of what I was doing. So she not only put herself in my shoes, she actually jumped into my shoes or her own shoes and started realizing the impact of that. She even interviewed the CEO, Shane Elliott, who was a big get for that show, and in the process created a huge improvement in your profile. And when
Mhm.
you did eventually leave and resign, lots and lots of people were very sad to see Anna go, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah, and now what I love about being a purpose partner with you is because we know exactly how it feels to be an entrepreneur. We get to travel together because we create our own schedule. We go to the same events together because our work is so aligned and so close. When we met people and when we talk, both of us talk to them, it makes a double impact effect.
And I want to share something that I got, a lady who is in my mastermind. She said to me, she's a woman in her late 50s. She's a very successful woman. And she said to me, these are her words. She said, I judge a man by how attractive his wife is. And not just physically, but whether she's a good person, whatever. And she will make business decisions to work with that particular individual as part of that judgment. Now, you may hear that and scream and go, oh, that's not fair. Well, it may not be fair, but it's the reality of the life that we live in. And stepping into reality is a lot more rewarding in terms of getting to the root cause of a lot of this stuff. And I was really surprised. I was like, really? That's amazing. And I knew that certainly I judge people on their physical, because I'm a human being. I've judged, and I've judged people for a number of other reasons. But I was really surprised to hear that from a woman, and I had a proud moment when I realized, because she decided to work with me without having met Anna. So then now she's met Anna and spent time with her. It's cemented the relationship even more.
All right. What are the 3 steps that people can take to build their life and business together?
Empathy. You got to put yourself in the other person's shoes, and just step back without trying to understand, and just immerse yourself in that, and then make a more informed decision.
Mhm. The second step is sit down together with your husband or wife. Write the list of your ideal business, of your ideal life, of your
Ideal friends.
ideal friends. What are your goals? What is your vision? How
And just while you're saying that as well, you want to create it in an environment where there are no parameters, there are no rules. Because like if we could wave a magic wand and get this dream life put together, what would it look like? And base it off that. You would be amazed at what you can achieve for things you had no idea. And I only say this from our own firsthand experience, because if you look at the list of goals that we wrote on a whiteboard together, we have manifested almost all of them. And I think the only missing one was the baby, which is, a work in progress.
And the third thing, figure out what are some of the skills or experience that you each have. What are some of the things you have as a woman that is missing in your man, and a man, what some of the skills you have that are missing in me. And so try to sit down and try to see how can you combine those things.
And the example I'll give you is that thankfully Anna and I are in the same industry, but Anna has developed a real knack for editing videos, editing like the actual production of the content. And it's something that I wanted to step away from and wanted to outsource as soon as possible. But out of necessity, Anna had to learn these skills. And as a result, we've created this beautiful synergy where I work to my strengths and then Anna works to her strengths, and then combined we become, infinitely stronger.
And then Laban is very good at writing the content, which I hate doing.
but you're getting much better and better.
Yeah, but what are the other things? You are so good at connecting with people. So you go first at finding the new connections and bringing more people into our life. And
Yeah,
I'm good with nurturing those relationships.
yeah, that's a really interesting one. I am a super connector, right? And I'm going to put that out there because I don't need to prove that to anybody. That is something that I've become really, really good at. And so it's allowed me to bring people into our life that then once they get an opportunity to meet Anna, quite often they end up becoming better friends with Anna than they might with me. And I'm totally okay with that, because my skill is connecting people. I operate from what value can I add this person's life mentality. I know Anna does this as well, but I do it in all areas of my life. So whether I'm talking to someone at the supermarket or, the person in Bangalore, doing the IT help desk thing, or someone on the other side of the planet on a Zoom call, that's always been my, not always, but it's been my mentality for the last 2 or 3, 4 years. And so that's, even if I had that, even if I was single, it'd still be a real great skill to have, but would it be anywhere near as effective as what Anna's able to bring to the table? Well, of course not. And as a result, we had these wonderful know, like, and trust relationships with people that we end up working with and doing business with and joint venturing with. And that really ties into the success of the whole business, which is the number 3 thing that we spoke about.
And it's very inspiring to see Laban constantly growing, constantly developing, reading new things, meeting new people. That every time he grows, it makes me, and it inspires me to go to the same level as he is. And once I go a bit higher, it inspires him to go a bit higher. If he would go up and I would stay here, it would be too big a gap between two people, and the understanding and the connection would become less and less and less. That's why it's so important to grow together.
And to know your role. Know your role, I think, is a great way to sum that up.
So, what is the sum up?
Well, I think we've given some hopefully really helpful insights into the first sort of steps of improving what might be an okay relationship, but you're not looking for okay, you're looking for explosive and chemistry and dynamic, and we're all deserving of that. And if this is helpful to you, let us know in the comments below. If there's additional areas that you want us to explore or subject matter that you're fascinated to learn about, let us know in the comment section below, and we'd love to try and do our best to share what is a lot of work that we have done on ourselves individually long before we got together. Then when we got together, the continual work that's taken place to make our relationship a truly magical one, and we are not, oblivious to the fact that we have a ridiculously good relationship. That's not without its challenges, of course, but it's hard for me to find examples of other people that have the kind of connection that you and I have, and the love and adoration that we have for each other.
And if you have your stories of success where you build an amazing relationship with your partner, feel free to share in the comments below. We would love to hear from you, and let's create a purpose partners for life. See ya.